Hey guys, I'm Dan Rodgers with the Key Leadership Inc. and I am really excited about what we get to talk about today. We're going to talk about negotiating your own salary. Negotiating your own salary. Stick around for a minute and we'll get started. Today we're going to talk about negotiating your salary. Let me start with a story first off. I remember when I used to work at a trucking company in Indiana, and I was at my first year review. I had worked there for 1 year, and I was 1 year now, and my boss, I sat down with him. His name was Ken. He sat down with me, and I remember negotiating my own salary for that particular position that I was working at, and he gave me the review, the annual review in that meeting. And he showed me my pay and what my increase would be and what it would look like. And he told me, he said, Daniel, you know, when you got started, you could have asked for more money. And man, I remember when he told me that, I was broken. I couldn't believe that I had the opportunity on the table that day to ask for more money, and I didn't know I could. Because I was nervous. I thought, man, I need a job. I want to move. I like the company I'm going to, but I was too nervous. I didn't know how to negotiate my own salary. Well, since then, I've had the opportunity to help negotiate salaries for many people in Chicagoland and Indianapolis and the Midwest area to help negotiate their salaries in addition to negotiating my own salary. And it's really awesome to be able to understand a couple of core principles. First off, let me start by saying this. In 2019, we are no longer in 2008. Back in 2008, you had to go to the company and you were in a position where you almost had to take whatever job came your way because the companies had the upper hand. But now in 2019, with our unemployment rate at very low, 3.5%, even it fluctuates here and there, with unemployment rate being so low, as a candidate, you are in the power position to negotiate your salary because the company needs you far more than you need them. The company needs you far more than you need them in 2019. That can change if another recession comes around or the unemployment rate rises. But for right now, as the unemployment rate is very low, the companies need you far more than you need them. I want you to understand that and get your head around it because you have a position now. If you want to get a 10% raise, sometimes a 20% raise is even possible, or a few $1,000s if you're in the middle market and you just need an increase in your pay. That's okay to ask for because you're in a position where they need you a whole lot more than you need them, okay? So remember that principle. Secondly, I want you to understand this concept. When you negotiate your salary, negotiation of your salary begins with the initial handshake. It begins with the initial handshake. It does not begin when they ask you how much you make. It begins with the handshake. As soon as you walk into your first interview or your phone interview, whatever it may be, you walk into that interview and you get ready, think of it as a handshake. Even if you're just on the phone, your body language and your voice qualities are vital in the negotiation process of your salary. Every time you negotiate with your people skills, your salary increases. Think about that concept. When you negotiate with your people skills, your salary increases because companies would rather pay all kinds of money for somebody that simply knows how to deal with people rather than just a guy that has just good technical knowledge. If somebody went to school and is highly educated and has a great degree and a great background, but he can't deal with people, companies will hire him, but they're not going to pay him nearly as much as somebody that simply knows how to communicate with other people. So remember, when you're negotiating your salary, it begins with the very first interaction that you have with that company. If it's in an email format, if it's in your resume, it's very important to make sure your salary negotiation begins with the very first handshake. If you're going in for an in-person interview to meet the hiring managers, maybe it's your second interview, and you're going in there and you shake that hand, make sure you shake it with a position of power, realizing they need you a whole lot more than you need them. Understand that principle. Lastly, I want you to understand this concept. You always sound more intelligent when you ask questions. Realize that principle. You always sound more intelligent when you ask questions. So when you're sitting in your interview, you might be nervous. They might come to you with something you may not be confident answering. They might ask you a question just to catch you off guard a little bit. There's nothing wrong with using the sales technique of answering a question with a question. If they ask you a question, simply say, can you clarify that question for me, please? And make it a question. Or if they say, why is this widget better than the other widget? Or why is my sales widget better than the other sales widget? You can clarify that by simply saying, well, have you ever offered the opportunity to use this widget? And simply turn their question into another question. That allows you to be disarmed a little bit and allows you to relax as they explain to you. Now they are answering the question in turn. So when it comes to your salary and you come and you say, they say to you, how much do you make right now? Okay. What I typically do is I typically use a range. I will offer somebody a range. Well, if you can meet me somewhere in 65 to 75,000, if you can meet me in 80 to 95,000, if you can meet me somewhere in that area, that would be a suitable preference for me. They will almost naturally assume that you are on the lower end of that range and that you want to be at the higher end. But in reality, most companies will meet you somewhere in the middle. They will meet you in the middle of that range in many cases. So they'll meet you at 75. If you say, I want to make 75,000, 75 to 85,000, they will most likely meet you somewhere 79 to 81,000 in that range. That's a good opportunity. Now, it's important to understand, you can tell them how much you make, but you've got to say it with confidence, because remember, that goes back to your people skills. Your ability to deal with people is your biggest power when it comes to negotiating your salary. So I want you to understand, number one, we said in 2019, with the unemployment rate as low as it is, companies need you a whole lot more than you need them. Secondly, I want you to understand that your negotiation of your salary begins with the handshake. It begins with that first initial interaction. Study how to shake a hand. Study how to interact with people with voice qualities and body language that says, yes, you need me, okay? Those are very important. And thirdly, understand the principle of you always sound more intelligent when you ask questions. It's vital to make sure, ask questions. A statement, any statement of fact can be turned into a question. It's very important to remember that. Any statement of fact can be turned into a question. Go have the best sales pitch ever. Go pitch yourself to your next company. Go make it a big sale. Go make that sale and close that deal all by yourself. You have the power to do it. Sometimes you simply need to understand some concepts and the principles, the mindset of doing this. Let me say this last thing before. When you go to your resume and it comes time to take a look at your resume and wonder, man, I want to get a promotion. I want to get from one position to a mid-level position. Currently, I'm at a low-level position. I want to advance to a mid-level role. My company currently is not giving me that with the culture. They're too big of a company, whatever it may be. I want you to understand, when you put your bullet points in your resume, you may have 5 bullet points under a point. You may have 4 bullet points. Understand this principle. There are tasks that you do at your current role that your boss most likely also does, okay? Understand this, half of your bullet points should point to the job you want, and half of them should point to the job you have. That helps you in a powerful way with negotiating your salary. There are tasks that you accomplish at your current role that you legitimately accomplish on a regular basis that your boss does as well. And you might be able to do them better. Put those on your resume. Half the tasks that you want for the job that you want, and half for the job that you currently have. That helps the person looking at your resume down the road, the next person, know he knows how to do the job. Why doesn't he have that title? Let's go ahead and give it to him, along with that increase in salary that they want. And there's several key principles to understand. You can negotiate your own salary. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and make that decision to do it, and reach out to us. We can sit down and talk through as many ideas as possible to help you with the Key Leadership Inc. We can introduce you to awesome people that can help you negotiate your salary and put together a perfect resume that really makes you look like the expert that you really are.